Hi, everybody. Darlene S.R. and Darlene S.R., Janet Marie, Dorothy Joy, Mark Gladstone, Nancy Steele, Janet S.R., Andy Fugit. Good to see everybody. Thank you very much. Hi there, Mr. Dickens. Hi there, Marianne. Marianne had a birthday, right?
Yes.
Happy birthday +1. Hi there, also Elise. Good to talk to you. The divine human. We've heard so much about you. Thank you. And John Mahoney, Moldy. Look, I want to read more. Or let me firstly say we have just had no luck with X, and even
Well, even the
even worse. I got a thing today saying that they were suspending the account I'd opened as Sir Elon or something,
well, you haven't done
which I
anything,
haven't done anything. So
but you were violating their terms,
violating their
and
terms.
so they suspended you.
Yeah. So obviously this is a big hacker problem. So we're doing what we can, and who knows, that may be nothing. In the meantime, I have reserved NPR Scott Simon on Blue Sky. And
Please come find us.
Yeah. And for example, will be when the posting becomes available, I will be putting it on Blue Sky later. Yeah, it is so stinky.
And it's been more than a week of contacting every person we know at, following all the directions they've asked, everything they've asked for customer service. You have a verified account. It shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, and you have an adorable Snoopy shirt.
Can I see that?
Yes, you can see it, and it's adorable. I love that shirt.
So Tom Wolfe's The Right Stuff. Ham, first chimp into space and to come back. Ready? I think you're right, John Mahoney. The white smock humans sapped the apes through their workouts right up into the last. On January 30th, this would be 1961, on the eve of the flight, they made their final selection. Originally, the first astronaut was to have been chosen at the same stage. They chose a male chimpanzee as the prime flyer and a female in the backup. The Air Force had brought the male from a supplier in the Cameroons, West Africa, 18 months ago when he was about 2 years old. All this time, the animals had been known by numbers. He was test subject 61. On the day of the flight, however, his name was announced to the press as HAM, an acronym for Holloman Aerospace Medical Center. Before dawn on January 31, they woke number 6 up and let him out of the cage and fed him and gave him a medical examination and attached his biosensors. Put him in a cubicle and closed the hatch and depressurized it. Another goddamn day with those earnest, hard, zapping, ball-breaking, white smock humans, he must have thought. The vets had put the cubicle in the transfer van, and the chimpanzee was taken to the launch pad out by the sea. The sun was up now, and a white rocket with a Mercury capsule and an escape tower on top of it stood gleaming, and they took number 61 and his cubicle up an elevator, on a gantry beside the rocket, and then put the cubicle in the capsule. There were more than 100 NASA engineers and technicians nearby working on the flight, monitoring consoles, and an entire team of veterinarians was monitoring the dials that read the ape's heartbeat, respiration, and temperature. We will get to that, Karen Smith.
Yes, this seems cruel.
Hundreds more NASA and Navy personnel were strung out across the Atlantic toward the Bermuda and Communications and Recovery Network. This was the most crucial test in the history of the space program. It was about 4 hours before they were able to fire the rocket. The biggest problem was an inverter, a device supposed to prevent rogue surges of power in the Mercury capsule's control system. The inverter kept overheating. All the while, during the hold, as they called delay, Chris Kraft, director of the first ape flight, just as he would be for the first human flight, kept asking how the ape was doing, apparently on the presumption that the long confinement would make the beast anxious. The doctors checked their dials. The ape didn't seem to have a nerve in his body. He was lying on.
He was excited.
Best, yeah.
Finally, they're making me do something up to my value.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's see how this develops. For the hour, he was lying up there in the cubicle as if he lived there. And why not? Yeah, sleeping. Isn't that what the great nerveless astronauts and pilots do? For the ape, every hour of the delay was like a holiday. No lights, no zaps, peace, bliss. They gave him two 15-minute workouts with the lights just to keep him alert. Otherwise, it was terrific. When they fired the rocket shortly before noon, it climbed at a slightly higher angle than it was supposed to, driving number 61 back into his couch with a force of 17 Gs. His heart rate shot up as he strained against the force, but he didn't panic for a moment. He'd been through the same sensation many times on the centrifuge. As long as he just took it and didn't struggle, they wouldn't zap all those goddamn blue bolts into the soles of his feet. He was weightless now, hurtling toward Bermuda, and they flashed the lights in his cubicle, and the ape's pulse returned to normal. The usual shit was flowing. The main thing was to keep ahead of those blue bolts in the feet. He started pushing the buttons and throwing the switches like the greatest electric Wurlitzer organist who ever lived, never missing a signal. When the Mercury retro rockets were fired automatically and the capsule came down through the atmosphere at the same angle on which it had gone up, another 14 Gs hit number 61, making him feel as if his eyeballs were coming out. There were worse things than feeling as if his eyeballs were coming out. The goddamn Zepp plates on his feet, for a start. So as far as mere spaceflight was concerned, number 61 was fearless. The beast had been operantly conditioned, aerospatially desensitized. The high angle of the launch also caused the capsule to overshoot the planned splashdown area by 132 miles, so it took 2 hours for a Navy helicopter to find the capsule out in the Atlantic and bring it aboard a recovery ship. The capsule and the ape were riding up and down in 7-foot swells. Water had begun to seep in where the landing bag had torn loose in the heavy seas. Capsule was wheezing and gurgling in the water and pitching up and down like a ball in the waves. It wouldn't have stayed afloat too much longer. 800 pounds of water had seeped in. For an ordinary, prudent human being, it would have been 2 hours of freaking terror. They brought the capsule to a recovery ship, the Donner, and opened it and brought out the ape's cubicle and opened the hatch. The ape was lying there with his arms crossed. They offered him an apple, and he took it and ate it with considerable deliberation as if gloriously bored. Those 2 hours of being slung up and down on the open seas in the 7-foot gulps inside a closed-like coffin had been perhaps the best time ever in this miserable land of the white smocks. There were no voices, no zaps, no bolts, no length of hose, no more breaking of his bloody balls. There was great elation among the astronauts and almost everyone involved in Project Mercury. There seemed to be no way Kennedy and Wisner, that was Jerome Wisner, could intervene and keep them from trying at least one manned flight. The pall of the day the cork pot had been removed. Late the next day, they flew 61 back to the Cape and Hangar S, where a great mob of reporters and photographers were now waiting out by the compound. The vets led the ape out of a van as the mob closed in and the flashbulbs began exploding. The animal, brave little Ham, as he was now known, became furious. Good for him. He bared his teeth. He began snapping at the bastards. It was all the vets could do to restrain him. This was immediately on the spot, interpreted by the press, the seemly gent, as an understandable response to the grueling experience he'd just been through. The vets took the ape back inside the van until he calmed down. Then they let him out again, trying to get him near a mock-up of the Mercury capsule, where the television networks had set up cameras and tremendous lights. The reporters and photographers surged forward again, yammering, yelling, exploding more camera lights. Shoveling, groaning, cursing, the usual Yahoo sprawl, in short. And the animal came unglued again, ready to twist the noodle off anybody he could get his hands on. This was interpreted as a manifestation of Ham's natural fear upon laying eyes once again on the capsule, which looked precisely like the one that had propelled him into space. The stresses the ape was reacting to were probably of quite another sort. Here he was back in the compound, where they had zapped him through his drills for a solid month. Just 2 years ago, he'd been captured in the jungles of Africa, separated from his mother. Shipped in a cage to a goddamn desert in New Mexico, kept prisoner, prodded and shocked by a bunch of humans in white smocks. And there he was, back in a compound where they'd been zapping him through their fucking drills for a solid month, and suddenly there was a whole new mob of humans on hand. Even worse than the white smocks, louder, crazier, totally out of their gourds, yammering, roaring, brawling, exploding lights beside their bug-eyed skulls. Suppose they threw him to those assholes. Fuck this. At some point, in the madhouse scene, out back of Hangar S, a photograph was taken in which Ham was either grinning or had on a grimace that looked like a grin in the picture. Naturally, this was the picture that went out over the wire services and was printed in newspapers throughout America. Such was the response of the happy chimpanzee to being the first ape in outer space. A fat, happy grin. Such was the perfection with which the proper gent observed the proprieties.
You write about this in your new book,
I do.
Ulysses S. Cat, The Use of Animals in Research.
Yes, and it's a hard thing for me. I remember doing a story years ago. I'll read this in the book some night. I was doing a story, and it was a research lab I won't identify. And they told me, I forget the number, how many thousands of lab rats were killed in the course of research. And at that point, I don't want to say to no result, but they certainly hadn't developed a cure or treatment of any substance. And, I'm not putting the life of a lab rat on the scale with the life of a human, but I think at some point you have to begin to ask questions about, is it right?
It's wrong.
And how many animals are we willing to sacrifice for what? So, also, I think animals do have a wonderful partnership with human beings.
And chimpanzees especially are such intelligent animals.
My father, years ago, they brought a chimpanzee on stage for his act, and my mother remembered how he picked up the little chimp and said, he feels just like my son. Yeah, to this day, I'm often confused. So, thanks very much for being with us tonight on our open book. Very good to be with you.
You have 8 followers now in Blue Sky.
All right.
It's quality, not quantity.
Quality, not quantity. All right. Thanks very much for being with us, everybody. And, and composing. And we'll work on building up our Substack, too. Only 2 years away from his home and his mother. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.